If you like to make your NFL games a little bit more interesting, you've come to the right place. It's the Even Money Podcast with Ross Tucker and Steve Fezzik.
Yeah, Vegas, baby, Vegas. It is the Even Money Betting Podcast. We are presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. And this has got to be our first ever Sunday night edition of the Even Money Betting Podcast. Just to pull back the curtain a little bit, we usually record early on Tuesday mornings, but the next couple days I'll be in New York City for the CBS NFL seminar, and so there's not really a good time for Steve and I to do the show when we normally would do it. This actually works out pretty well because DraftKings just posted all the preseason NFL Week 2 betting lines, so we can dive into it, and then there's nothing preventing us from releasing the show right away so that you guys can have access to Steve's thoughts on preseason Week 2 action and take your own action immediately if you're so inclined. As a reminder, this is a great time of year to go to patreon.com/RTmedia and to sign up for a Tuckheads membership in the Slack channel. It's $9.99, I think, a month, and that is where Sean Grady, aka Grades, our Australian sensation, will post the vaunted spreadsheet throughout the NFL season with more with more information than you could ever imagine that you guys will absolutely love and just save you the time of trying to listen back twice or write down notes about, our best bets and stuff. It'll all be right there for you in spreadsheet form. Patreon.com/RTmedia. As a reminder, if you ever want to ask Steve a question, just take advantage of any of the sponsors you hear on the show or rate and review the show and send that to me directly, ross@rosstucker.com. You can ask Steve whatever question you want. If you took advantage of a sponsor or you rated and reviewed the show, you'll go to the top of the list, which is awesome. The Steve I'm referencing is Steve Fezzik at Fezzik Sports and only at Fezzik Sports. The only two-time winner of the Super Contest over at the Westgate. He's got a documented track record of top 5, top 10 finishes in a dozen or so other public contests, which is fantastic. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL on social media. I get a chance to call games. Did my first one last Thursday, Eagles, Bengals. That was a lot of fun. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Hopefully those of you that watched it did as well. Saturday, actually, it's the Browns at the Eagles, 1 p.m. That game will be live on NFL Network. So my coverage, my broadcast will be live NFL Network Saturday at 1. So for those of you that aren't as familiar, you get a chance to watch Tanner McKee, Shador Sanders, and me. So check that out. You can follow me at Ross Tucker NFL. Follow us at Ross Tucker Pod. That way you always know when the show is posted, or even you can just make sure that your notifications are turned on, whether it's on your podcast app or youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Steve, we got a big announcement coming as it relates to this show. Not quite yet, but that will be coming soon. All I can tell you is you guys are going to be very, very happy, very, very excited. We will get to that a little bit later. Right now, we got to get to NFL Week 1. And Steve, you know how I roll. I want to know your thoughts, your biggest takeaways from NFL Week 1 from a betting perspective. Just do one at a time. I know you get excited and you'll rattle off 5. What was the biggest one that you took away?
All of the scoring, Ross, 14 overs, 2 unders. So you could talk about it being a small sample, only 16 games, and that would be fine if it was 11-5. 14-2, I plugged this in warning. Math, Ross, danger. Into a binomial distribution, assume you flip a coin 16 times, a fair coin. The probability of flipping 14 heads, 0.18%, 500 to 1. The probability of flipping 15 or 16, basically zero. So we are so far on the right-hand side of the distribution tail, it basically is saying the totals must have been too low for that to have occurred in that week one. Now, the real question, Ross, is what is causing it and why did we see 14 overs and 2 unders? How many games did you watch, and what's your observation on that?
Well, the one thing that jumps out to me for sure, Steve, that I don't know that they calculated is teams are playing their starters more, some of these teams, right? The Bengals played their starters the whole first quarter, so that led to 2 touchdowns by Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase. Tua Tagovailoa played in the preseason for the first time since 2021. Russell Wilson played. So I almost feel like, Steve, the totals are built on, hey, these are backup quarterbacks, backup offensive linemen, and typically those guys don't score a ton of points. It's hard. The defense is usually ahead of them. But I think with the starters being out there, a lot of them moved the ball and a lot of them scored points early in games, which I think helped to boost the total. And I'm not sure whether or not, the books actually took that into account.
100%. I agree with that. I also feel in prior years, there was a lot of sense of, it's the second half, let's just get out of here, not get a lot of injuries, and the team that was ahead be very conservative. And I think we're seeing much more the evaluation of all the quarterbacks. It's important, and teams throwing a lot more in the second half. I wanted to ask you, certainly the new kickoff rules, I don't know if it's going to promote more of an advantage for getting the ball, because now teams are going to kick off, and most teams are indeed kicking off to like the 2-yard line, the 3-yard line. We're seeing more kickoff returns. But that, Ross, big time promotes more scoring, because good and bad things can happen on that kickoff. You can fumble. You can take it back for a touchdown. You can take it back to midfield. And I think that certainly had an impact on the scoring as well.
So I think it's based on the data I've seen, and the NFL has some internal projections, and, they talked to us about that, during the preseason seminar with the NFL in terms of officiating. But I'd have to look it up, Steve. I don't have it with me right now, but it went from it increased, 15% maybe the amount of returns last year, as opposed to in 2023, before the dynamic kickoff, it might have gone from 21% to 37%. They think it might be 80%. I mean, people are not going to kick touchbacks. So they're all going to try to do that thing you would imagine, which you were talking about last week, Steve, where you try to kick a knuckler to the 2 or 3 and have it roll into the end zone then, because then it would just go to the 20. As long as you get it to land down in that landing zone, that's what teams are going to try to do. And that's going to lead to some interesting outcomes. You said it, Dortch for the Cardinals fumbled a kickoff return, but they had a lot more explosive plays, a lot more significant plays last year as a result of it. And I think it's going to be exponentially more this year. You also make a fantastic point. There was a lot more throwing in the second half of these games, and they are trying to evaluate their down-the-line receivers, their down-the-line secondary, and the quarterbacks. They want to know who their quarterback 3 should be in some cases, or quarterback 2. So there's more throwing. More throwing stops the clock. We had a 3-hour window for our game. I think our game went 3 hours and 15 minutes. That just doesn't happen in the regular season, hardly ever. But in the preseason, you've got more incompletions, you've got more penalties stopping the clock, because these are the third stringers and they're getting penalties for holds or whatever. There's just a lot of things that are slowing the game down, I notice, and stopping the clock.
No question at all about that. As far as the production of the offenses, I was a little underwhelmed. I thought I would see a lot of yardage, a lot of yards per play. And frankly, only one team stood out, Ross. Only one team had more than 6 yards per play, which was shocking given all the scoring. Buffalo Bills, and they lost. The Bills had over 7 yards per play, but lost by 9 to the New York Giants in a phony final. I had 4 phony finals. The Giants only gained a little over 5 yards per play. The Bills over 7. So I'd be looking at the Bills the rest of preseason as a potential play-on team off of that phony loss.
You know, one question I have, Steve, is how much, 2 things. How much from preseason week 1 do you take to preseason week 2? And then is there anything from preseason week 1 that impacts how you feel about regular season week 1?
Only the rookie quarterbacks, frankly. So Sanders played much better for Cleveland than we expected. I do think that that's significant. I know it's a different animal, preseason versus regular season, but I do think that there is some correlation. So paying attention to the rookie quarterbacks, New Orleans Chuck threw a horrific pick 6, for instance. Like when you see something like that, you're like, wow, that kid is not ready to be an NFL quarterback.
More great stuff right after this. I know what you're thinking, Ross. That sounds good, but I don't have time for that. But you do. Monarch is built for people with busy lives, right? You don't want to leave money on the table. When you're making good money, like I know a lot of you are, it's easy to get complacent. You're not tracking every dollar. But here's the deal. If you're not aware of what you're spending, then you're leaving money on the table. You're spending money on things you don't need to be. That could be money you use for other things, maybe like things here on the Even Money Betting Podcast. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code EVEN at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. We talk about bonuses and taking advantage of them all the time. How about a 50% bonus off your first year at monarchmoney.com using the code EVEN. Love, love, love when the Eagles have Thursday night preseason games because that meant I get a full beach weekend in and I get my beloved Labatt Blue Light, Labatt Blue Light Lime, and I'm one step closer to getting incredible merch with Buy Beer, Get Gear, rewards.labattusa.com. You're talking to someone that got the fridge and goes around to BYO restaurants at the Jersey Shore wearing my Labatt Blue Light cooler backpack. That's how cool it is. Be cool like me. Get the cooler backpack. Rewards.labattusa.com. It's interesting because I mentioned I'll be at the Eagles-Browns joint practice on Wednesday, and then I'll be calling that game, Steve, on Saturday for NFL Network. Just a note there on Shedeur Sanders. I think this is important, okay? The last couple years, even when he was a rookie, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, a.k.a. DTR, was phenomenal in the preseason the last 2 years, Steve. Phenomenal. In the regular season, not so much.
Yes.
In the regular season, he really struggled. I don't know what that means for Shedeur Sanders. I thought Shedeur looked really good and made some nice plays. But I think it's important to note the Browns literally had a young quarterback, look awesome in the preseason the last 2 years. And then when he actually got in regular season games, it was like bad. And so I think on some level, all preseason action should be taken with a grain of salt. But especially, maybe the Browns quarterback situation based on what we just saw from DTR the last couple of years.
And Cleveland's result was another phony final. They beat Carolina 30-10. Sounds like their offense was tremendous. Sanders did play well, but both teams did average below 5 yards per play. So comparable in the stats. very misleading final score where it looks like Cleveland totally outplayed Carolina and just more unusual plays that tended to result in that 20-point victory.
Seems like a bunch of the young quarterbacks. Jackson Dart played well. I don't know how much you watched my game, Steve, but this Tanner McKee for the Eagles, it's his third year. All he's ever done is play well. Preseason and regular season. He played a game and a half last year. The Cowboys came in, started the Giants game. Just something to keep an eye on down the line if he ends up being a quarterback elsewhere, or if Hurts gets hurt and McKee has to play this year. I think he'll play I've never seen him not play well at this point. I will say something else that I take away, and this isn't even from the preseason action, Steve, but Rashawn Slater, the left tackle for the Chargers, torn patella tendon right after they just gave him a 4-year, $114 million contract. That's big. And, I know you're going to tell me that it's not big enough to move the season win total line, but what I would say to that, Steve, is, I don't know if they're 8, let's just say they're 8.5, okay? And if you were kind of teetering, like, I don't know, I think maybe the Chargers win 9, I don't know, that would be enough. If it was a tie or if I was debating, that would be enough for me. I mean, he's arguably their best player, certainly one of their 5 best players. Now he's done for the year. So now they got to move Alt to left tackle, Pipkins to right tackle. That's significant. I mean, the strength of their offensive line was their 2 tackles. And now not only is he out, but now they got to move the right tackle to left tackle. He might not play as well over there. So that's one where, for week 1 NFL and for season win totals, I'd be looking at the Chargers real hard.
Well, I actually agree with you. If we look at the value of Slater, let's assume he's worth a point a game. Sounds insignificant. That might be a little bit on the high side. It might be accurate, actually, because you move Alt and now he's not in the position that he wants to be playing, right? So he has to make an adjustment. That's 17 points over the course of a season. 17 points, 35 points equates to a win. That's half a win, Ross. And that means the Chargers, instead of winning 9.6 games, or I'll round it to 9.5, now they win 9 games. So it absolutely is significant. We saw movement week 1 already. Kansas City bet up. Game in Brazil from -2.5 to -3. If Slater was playing, I'd at 100% say take the Chargers +3. I've made no move whatsoever on the Chargers because of that injury.
Wait, so after the Slater news, it affected the week 1 line?
It's a great question because it didn't move right when Slater got injured, but it moved within a day. Yes, so the pros came and they waited and then they fired on it.
God, the other thing is, we're recording this Sunday night. Sounds like left guard for the Eagles, Landon Dickerson, got hurt. We have no information on how significant it is. I would just tell you, Steve, he is a critical component of the tush push. Critical. He is 6'6", 355, 360, and he and Mailata are movers of men in their prime. So that's just something I think to take note of if it ends up being a serious injury for Landon Dickerson. Let's hope that's not the case. Again, just happened literally while we're talking right now. But that would be my big thing, is the young quarterbacks as well as injuries like Slater and possibly Dickerson. Although don't you always, in terms of week 1 and how it relates to week 2 preseason, Steve, aren't you the one that's always betting on the team that was 0-1 against the team that's 1-0?
And that's going to be a very small card this year, Ross, because I think there's one game that qualifies. Dallas is playing against Baltimore. Dallas 0-1, Baltimore 1-0. I'm not eager to bet Dallas if I'm not getting 3. I know they're a small underdog. So that's the only game that's qualifying right now. So normally I have like 5 or 6 or 7 bets based upon that angle. And this year, I don't know if I'll have any.
How is that possible? That there's only one game where it's 1-0 against 0-1?
Well, the ties certainly didn't help. We had 4 ties, so I throw the tie teams out, and then you got a whole bunch of teams that both won playing each other, and a whole bunch of teams that both lost playing each other.
Hold on a second. It's so funny, Steve, because I was watching a bunch of these games, and then I read reports on these games. I didn't even look at the score. There were 4 ties?
2 ties, 4 teams tied.
Okay. 2 ties, 4 teams tied, and you have to throw those out. Okay, that does make a sizable difference then. That's 4 teams. That's a decent percentage. Okay. Anything else jump out at you preseason week 2? I mean, with the overs, have you already fired, or are you going to fire on some of these overs?
Yes. I took the day off here, but I can't take the day off. I got to look through and see which teams' games I want to play over. I'm going to predict, if you track the opening numbers versus the closing numbers, everyone who bet week 1 preseason that bet overs won. They're going to do it again. So you're going to see inflation upwards on these totals. So if you do like overs, you want to play them now. If you like any unders, I would wait and play them at post right before the game starts. So that would be my number 1 takeaway betting advice for week 2. I'll give one out that I like. Buffalo, Chicago, Sunday, 37.5, available at DraftKings. I'll go over. Let's lock in the over 37.5 on a Bills team, like I said, that averaged over 7 yards per play in week 1 and had a shootout. And obviously, the Bears, not a lot of stats, but 24-24. And Ben Johnson, very aggressive coach. That's good for the over as well.
Two thoughts before I forget. One is fascinating about the overs. And I feel like preseason, usually people don't score very much at all. So that seemed like an anomaly this year so far. And then, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Remember, Steve, last week, Zach Taylor said, we have the starters slated to play more in week 2 against Washington. So he told us they were going to play a quarter against the Eagles. They did. They went 2 for 2 touchdowns, right? Zach Taylor said last week that the Bengals are going to play more. The starters are going to play even more against Washington. That's the one where they're going to play the most. I don't know if they play a whole half or how much they play, but that should be taken into account. Certainly when you think about the total, you would think, Steve, that would have given the Bengals a huge edge in terms of the betting line, but they couldn't stop Tanner McKee and the Eagles. Even when they had 5 or 6, I don't know, maybe 7 defensive starters out there, they still couldn't stop Tanner McKee and the Eagles' second string. Not a good sign for the Bengals.
No, not a good sign for the new defensive coordinator. Hey, one thing about Washington. Washington just lost to New England by 30. So another thing I like to do in preseason is back teams off of embarrassing losses. Phony final in the stats. New England only slightly outgained yards per play Washington, but beat them 48-38. Whole lot of penalties for Washington. They had like 100 yards in penalty yards. So maybe look for Washington to play a cleaner game and really point of emphasis to clean that up. So because of that, I guess you could bet the Bengals in the first half, but I'd be very careful about betting against a Washington team that just got embarrassed week 1.
Bengals first half sounds pretty good. What about, you texted me and said, let's discuss why it's so important to try to spend some family time these next 2 weekends. Tell me about it, Steve.
Well, here we are breaking down NFL preseason week 2, but you know what? College football hasn't started. College football starts basically in 2 weeks here. Okay, so this is the last weekend where you can really get away. And you know what? I think it's okay if you miss NFL preseason on the weekend and the like. You're going to be you and I and everyone are going to be so busy with football September through the holidays. This is an excellent opportunity to maybe, not spend the weekend on your couch watching football. I know I'm going to spend far less time with the NFL in preseason weeks 2 and 3. I always do this because there's just not enough hours in the day. And I don't want to be working 16 hours on the weekends in August with college football, right around the corner when I'm doing that, each and every day, Saturday and Sunday.
I didn't look to see just how big the college football week 0 slate is. I know, 2 weeks from yesterday is college football week 0. I know CBS has a game, Stanford, Andrew Luck and Frank Reich out at Hawaii, but I'm not sure how many other games are that week. And then obviously Labor Day weekend is just college football. There's no NFL action at all that weekend.
Yeah, so Saturday, August 23rd is week 0, just 4 games. We start out in Ireland, Iowa State, Kansas State, and then 3 other games later on. So we do get a soft open here.
Yeah, only like 4 games. That's good. All right, so here's what everybody needs to do, okay? You need to follow this guy on social media, at Fezzik Sports. We don't have quite enough time here to try to squeeze an email question in, so I'm not going to do that, but follow at Fezzik Sports on social media. He does an absolutely fantastic job. You can follow me as well, at Ross Tucker NFL. I said it at the start of the show. I'll say it again now. Patreon.com/RTmedia. This will be the best $10 a month that you've ever paid in your life for the next 5 months, because that's where you can get all of Steve and I's bets on the show in black and white. Save yourself, $50 for the NFL season? That's well worth it to not have to write stuff down or listen multiple times. I don't mind if you listen multiple times. That's cool too. Other than that, good luck, everybody. Hope you guys win some money.
Thanks for tuning in to Even Money. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.